kind of shit the bed, and it's telling me that we're only available on Facebook today.
Oh,
and
dear.
that is no bueno, Jackie boy. But we've already gotten feedback from our friends about how they don't care about our wonderful technological problems. How was your night, Jack? Did you? How was your first night under the Biden administration?
We are still celebrating here, Seth.
Are you?
Yeah, there are remnants of wine and little and candles and stuff. We are still celebrating. And
yeah, how'd that go?
well, I think collectively, we have to make sure that this moment doesn't peter out too quickly. It's got to be savored, and it also has to be respected. The joy of the change. Unfortunately, human nature tends to belie that. It tends to make people existential problem that the good changes are quickly forgotten. The bad ones stay with us forever. Okay.
It's funny. It seems like there's such an appetite for taking this experience and getting rid of it as quickly as possible.
Seth, in that vein, it's interesting. I was thinking about this, and I haven't mentioned it to you. A number of people, including Johan, has said to me, it's like a dream. And I thought, that's really interesting. Obviously a nightmare for most of us. But the thing that differentiates a dream from reality is it is so far from reality.
Yeah.
And that is why they say, it seems like it's over so quickly. It was like a dream. It's because we never could have predicted the reality of it, just like a dream, where our deepest self-conscious has been accessed.
Yeah.
And that's why people say it. It was so.
And I think people also don't want to admit how traumatized they were by this pathetic excuse for a human being.
Yep.
In the most important political position in the world.
Yes.
And the interplay between what we see as an abstract construct, the country that we live in,
and not just him, Seth. It's like the dawn of the dead. So all of a sudden, your neighbors are dragging their feet as they're moving up the street, looking for brains to eat. That is the trauma. The trauma isn't Trump. It's what your neighbors turned out to be.
And that is actually the shocking thing that, for me, the problem that I've had, that I've talked to the Thomaston police about ad nauseum, which is finally getting some resolution, is a deeply troubling thing. This idea that there can be a pattern of harassment that can go on unacknowledged or unpunished for, I don't know, what is it, 9 months, 8 months, 7 months, whatever it is, that can't stand.
That's right.
And it shouldn't be allowed to. And so, finally I'm getting some kind of resolution on that. And I will, I guess I'll talk about that when the investigation is concluded.
Well, I was happy to hear, Seth, that you got good cooperation from the police. And because I am in the midst of reading Murder in the Heartland in the northeast corner of Oklahoma in the prairie, in that situation, the level of corruption of the police and the investigators, you would have been dead. You would have been dead by now, and your trailer would have been burned to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's really the difference.
Yeah.
You got to kind of ask yourself, we've self-selected, you and I both self-selected this part of the world to live in for very specific reasons. And one of those reasons we thought was that it's fucking civilized.
Mm-hmm.
That there are people here that have manners. They don't eat with their fingers.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to take a bath periodically. Vastly different from some parts of New York, isn't it?
It's not just that, Seth, more than any of those things, because a lot of those aren't really truisms here. The big difference is nobody gets up in your face here.
Yeah.
You live in the tri-state area, and everybody's getting up in your face all the time. It's
Yeah,
obnoxious.
that's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Jeff is telling me he can't find the Jack and Seth show on the Facebook page, on the YouTube page. So I'm going to have to direct him to Facebook. I'm going to apologize. We're not going to be on YouTube today. We're only going to be. I'm telling him, please do.
Do you want to try it again, Seth?
No, I'm.
Okay.
If I restart, the whole program will shit the bed, and I don't want to subject anybody to some problems.
Got you.
Okay. Yesterday, I posted on my Facebook page something that got people very angry. It was the picture of Bernie Sanders sitting by himself, and he is sitting by himself. It's approximately 45 degrees in Washington when he's sitting there. And he's wearing what, not me, other people describe as an outfit that he might be going out to get his mail, go to the DMV, or snowblow or shovel his driveway. You and I living in Maine, we know exactly what that look is too. I mean, we put on our LL Bean's Baxter Park parka, our mittens, whether they be made by reclaimed wool from woolen sweaters, repurposed wool or not. I actually have a pair of Husqvarna chainsaw gloves that I wear in the winter.
For picking up trash in your driveway?
Exactly right. Exactly. Because that's dangerous work.
It is.
At any rate, I said Bernie showing us exactly why he's the wrong guy in 2020. I don't know why the world sees a fashion forward look, but those of us who grew up surrounded by thousands of versions of this expression and posture instantly recognize it for what it actually is. Let me express that to you, Jack, right now. That is Bernie essentially saying, I don't give a fuck what the event is. I'm going to dress this way regardless. I'm a maverick. I sit outside of your political structure. I sit outside of your political traditions, and I don't really give a fuck. To me, we spend a lot of time on this show talking about visual language. My take is we just elected and in that picture inaugurated a transitional, a absolute sea change of a president. But we also inaugurated the first woman to hold the seat of vice president, who is also a Black woman and a woman of South Asian origin. Have some respect for the process. Have some respect for your coworkers, and don't dress like an upscale homeless person.
Okay.
Everybody who was there, let me finish, because I have a series of objections that I want to get through. Everybody who was there on that stage is abundantly and acutely aware of what they're presenting to the world visually with tens of millions of people watching. So I called that out. That is a visual fuck you.
Okay. Let me defend Bernie. First of all, Bernie is part of this display, which he intuitively doesn't want to be part of and dislikes intensely.
Yep.
So hats off to Bernie for dressing the way he does. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. He's a very old guy who's got to keep his body temperature up compared to some of the younger people, except for Biden, who has to dress a certain way. He's sitting there and he's chilled, and he wears a pair of mittens that he loves because his grandkid gave them to him. So he's sitting there expressing who he is in this pageant of politics. That's one of the reasons I love him. Now we can talk about has the Democratic Party earned his respect by absolutely squashing him against Hillary Clinton? No, he doesn't respect that.
That's an irrelevant consideration.
Okay, I don't agree. The other thing is, I have to tell you, I do these memes as much as anyone because I love meme competitions. Okay. And the thing about it is, I adore Bernie. Not only do I find him one of the most honest politicians that America's had, and you can argue this, I'm sure, Seth, ad infinitum. Not only that, but he is a democratic socialist, which is exactly what I am. The problem with Bernie is that 50% of Americans are dumber than a brick, and 90% of the rest don't know what democratic socialism is. So if you run on that platform, it's political suicide. And that may be myopic or psychotic, but that's who Bernie is. And I adore him. And you may say, oh, he's a Jewish uncle. And when you're from Princeton, Waspville, you are looking for a Jewish uncle all your life. I think we lost Seth. So let me play something for you. Seth, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, buddy. What I wanted to say was, we all remember this photo of Dick Cheney in Europe, and we all excoriated. This is Dick Cheney wearing a military parka to a formal event of foreign leaders. And Dick Cheney was excoriated for this back here. If we're going to excoriate Dick Cheney for that here, or for that matter, if we are going to say that Garth Brooks, the very same people who took issue with my criticism of Bernie's visual language were exactly the same people that were beating the shit out of Garth Brooks because Garth Brooks wore blue jeans, right? Because Garth Brooks is not a political icon and is of a different cultural class, he's not, of the Northeastern elite. He's not a liberal. He represents country music. He represents middle America. So we have license to go after Garth Brooks for wearing blue jeans, which, by the way, were pleated. They were creased, his blue jeans. So he actually wore creased blue jeans to this event. Bernie Sanders did an intentional effort. Now, here's the thing that I also was concerned about. But now Bernie Sanders is head of the budget committee. He can have some influence over spending. So if you're in Washington and you're Bernie Sanders and you're paying attention to his visual language, the same way you're paying attention to Mitch McConnell's messaging, it is not an unintentional visual message. It is as intentional a visual message as Jim Jordan's shirt sleeves.
No, I don't agree. And
why?
I don't agree at all. Because Bernie Sanders is a predictable bad dresser. Just like, and this is what I love. Remember when Mark Zuckerberg was called into the Senate committee?
I do.
And he looked like they dressed up an adolescent 14-year-old for his prom.
I do.
The tie was wrong, the knot was wrong, the collar was too big. I fucking love that. To me, that was a fuck you statement.
Well, I mean, the hypocrisy of people who say things like, there are only two possible ways to see your post here would serve any purpose, Seth. You're either working for the Republicans or you're working for the Russians. Which one of these is your master?
Well, they're both the same now, aren't they?
I suppose they are. But I mean, the batshit crazy hypocrisy of the left, we have to watch out for that too. And I'm not here to, a lot of people said, hey, well, how can you say this? Well, I can say it because it's visually true. I can say it because it's disrespectful. And I can say it because I'm not a partisan on this show or in my Facebook feed with only one side that I take issue with. That's not why South Park was funny. South Park was funny because they pretended they didn't pretend that hypocrisy only existed on one side. Hypocrisy exists on both sides. And if you're liberal and you don't call out liberals, you have no right to talk to me about how valid your worldview is, because your worldview is a one-way street. My worldview is a two-way street. And so I'm going to call out hypocrisy when I see it.
I agree. And so do I, Seth. But keep in mind that any organization, when they're firemen, police, whether they're teachers, whether they're military, is going to do everything they can to protect the organization. And hypocrisy is one of those things one of those tools that they use to protect the organization. End of story. It's a psychodynamic in any large group. Look at the church, for fuck's sake. You talk about hypocrisy. Holy shit.
Pedophiles that dress up like fancy women in satin and, in red hats and all that shit. Sure, that's crazy.
Let me address the viewers said he wore his new hair. Well, I saw him with his hat off and I said, I want to see Garth Brooks unplugged. Sorry, Seth.
I get it. Yeah. That's highbrow stuff right there, buddy.
But I love Garth Brooks. He is such a rock star.
But a lot of people, the people that took issue with what I said on Facebook, are the same people who have criticized Republicans visually before, and each and every one. I could look at where you sit on the political spectrum based on your response here.
That's true.
And it's only people who are to the left of I guess my Facebook friends would say, oh yeah, well, that's I take issue. One person said, I'm not watching the show today in protest. Okay, that's fine. It's the inauguration of the President of the United States. It's an office that we should value as Americans. It's an office that was disparaged and spat upon by the fat redheaded scumbag that just walked out of it. And are you now saying that we're going to have qualified respect for the office as long as it's okay for our political narrative? No, we respect the office and we adhere to traditions out of respect for the office, regardless, but especially when we have just inaugurated a Black woman as vice president. Have some respect for the traditions. That's all I'm saying. And I think it was a visual fuck you.
Okay. I don't agree with you here. I think there are certain people that can show respect without having to dress up. One is Bernie Sanders and one is Garth Brooks. I'm sorry. Are you going to tell one of these singers not to wear makeup? I mean, this is who they are. If you can survive in government and still be how you see yourself, I think that's a plus, Seth. And I think anything else is like screaming patriotic diatribe. Okay,
no,
this to me is something.
You said that Bernie earned the right to dress that way.
That's right.
Democrats have treated him.
Listen,
So you've essentially admitted that it's an expression of disrespect. And what I'm saying is, well, you said that Bernie's earned the right to dress that. I have a feeling, I'm not picking on you. I have a feeling that that's what everybody thinks. I have a feeling that it's okay. It's okay to say fuck you to the establishment sometimes. Sometimes it's okay to say fuck you to the establishment because we just got done saying fuck you to the establishment.
Okay, so Bob Dylan goes into the Oval Office, or Ted Nugent. Did you see Ted Nugent in the Oval Office?
No, but I also don't see Ted Nugent as the head of the budget committee.
You know, that's not a bad idea. I'm surprised he didn't.
Yeah,
I'm surprised he didn't end up there under the Trump administration.
Look, Jeff says, look at how they criticized Obama for wearing the tan suit.
That's right. Okay. That's right.
It's a two-way street.
Of course it is. But I don't think there's any reason to get on a moral high horse about the fact that Bernie is saying fuck you, that the people who've been fucking him over for 20 years are having a celebration.
Right. But that's my post was, this is why that guy is the wrong guy, not for 2016, Jack. I didn't post that. What I posted was Bernie is the wrong guy for 2020. Why? Because 2020 is supposed to be a time of national reconciliation and healing after our flirtation with authoritarian fascism.
I agree with you 100%. He clung to the wrong message for a group of ignorant peasants.
Yeah. And trust me, bro, we're getting into the ignorant peasantry in space. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'd like to ask if anybody has any observations, thoughts about this, feel free to put them in the comments section and we'll get into it.
Seth,
go ahead. Go ahead.
So no, you go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
I was just going to say that as you're thinking what you're going to say, could you put up a picture here for me?
Sure. What do we got?
We've got this.
Oh, the Bernie guy?
Nope. It is, but I'm going to read you the headline.
Okay.
This is from Swedish largest newspaper, article by Martin Gelin. He says, when fascism comes to the United States, it won't be dressed in uniform and leather boots. That's what the title says.
Yeah.
So it's obviously a restatement of the fact that fascism will be wrapped in a flag, carrying a Bible, an AR, and a Trump sign and a MAGA hat, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But it's interesting. It's an old idea. And while we're on it, I think we just have to give a shout out to this gentleman here. And this is at the Augusta State Capitol.
I mean, you know, here's a guy. He's off by himself. His sign is batshit crazy. I mean, batshit crazy. Impeach Biden. He's been there for 2 days. Today is 24 hours.
And Democ rats.
Democ rats. I love this. He is selling us out to China and destroying our great USA. Don't allow it. Stop socialism by Democrats. Okay, Jack, what does this man really mean, Jack? What is he really saying?
You know what he's really saying is, I was in the military for 20 years and I have a government pension. That's what he's saying.
No, I think it's things are changing. Black people can vote. I thought this country was about Christmas and white people and the Hallmark Hall of Fame and the Lifetime Channel. I thought this was about Pillsbury, the Pillsbury Doughboy. I thought this country was about only Republicans holding office.
Yep.
And I thought this country was about ideas that I learned only what I wanted to learn in school when I paid attention, and then conveniently forgot about in the public space because I don't believe that I have any responsibilities as a citizen. I feel that my responsibilities of a citizen are just being white.
Yeah.
Just being white and going to my job and working and getting a paycheck, and the roads magically repair themselves. That's what this person was thinking. But here's the theme of today's show.
Okay.
Technology in our visual language.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd like to express to you is that the conflict over Bernie, the conflict over Garth Brooks, the conflict over all of these people that stormed the Capitol is brought to you live and in person on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram by technology, which is on every single person's cell phone, that the technology itself has made them addicted to, that they thrive on, that has empowered them in ways they never expected. The technology itself made these images possible. The technology, because of cell phone camera usage, and the apps on those cell phones broadcast those images to the broader universe. The technology did that too. And the technology that we see those on for our own addiction to our own brain chemicals and our own need for fulfillment, not the least of which is this exact broadcast, by the way, ironically enough. That technology is creating a demand for itself to be implemented more. Because if you look at the picture brought to you by cell phone technology of the people that invaded the Capitol, you see a scatter shot of faces that we can do facial recognition on using other technology. And we discovered that 20% of the people that were at that Capitol insurrection are members of the former military. And there is no way that we, the people, can deal with this without the further implementation of monitoring via technology. The technology creates a demand for itself to be inserted into our daily lives. And we gleefully say, yes, technology, save us from these white supremacists that we're terrified of, that we see on our technology.
Okay. I want to point out this thing with Flynn's brother, Charles Flynn, because this is a seminal moment that a lot of people haven't recognized. First of all, there was the Pentagon denial of his involvement in the call for the National Guard. That's not what's important. What's important is they decided not to because of the optics. So all of a sudden you have a population where you're not safe if your situation tends to violate the optics.
The visual language that the commander-in-chief is so addicted to.
Yes.
So acutely aware of.
Yep.
And so let's get a little smarter on this one. Let's dig a little bit deeper, because Flynn is the brother of disgraced former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn. He is a lieutenant general, if that's even a thing. He has a chest full of ribbons, and he was on the phone call when the Capitol Police asked the National Guard for assistance and was refused. This was a coup. This was a planned coup by people who understood that if the coup failed, their worldview is finished, because Black people are going to be registering to vote, Hispanic people are going to be registering to vote, and we are going to fight the institutional racism that keeps that power structure in place.
And notice, Seth, He's also said, when the call was going on, I came into the room late and I left before it was over. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Think back. Trump
Yeah.
Tower, Russians. Does
Yep.
that ring? Jared Kushner. I
It's the same
came late
playbook.
and I left before the meeting was over.
Same playbook.
Unbelievable.
Yep. So this, make no mistake about it, this is a coup. And it's not about divisions within the Democratic. It's not about the death of the Republican Party. It's about a worldview held by white people in this country who feel as if other people finally getting their piece of the pie disenfranchises them. End of story. This is about scared people who have nothing being replaced in our culture by people who are happen to be a different color, who are willing to work finally to achieve the American dream. That's what Constitution is.
And keep in mind, this is not just this country. This is all over the world, particularly Europe, Southern Europe, Scandinavia, England. This is everyone feeling like they're being invaded. The groups are different. In France, it's North Africans. In England, you have all the former English colonies. Then you have the migration from the Eastern European countries to Germany. They come from, everybody has a different problem. In Asia, it's the same thing. It's the workforces in Abu Dhabi. It's all those things. There's always a group that comes and threatens the status quo. And internationally, it is the leveling of the playing field.
Yeah, and I suppose the only difference, Jack, is that not only can we see what's happening in Hungary, Poland, Croatia, everybody sees everything that's happening in real time, and we're only now being made aware of it. Oh, you mean this is a problem? Yes, because typically it was people that actually fucking read that knew it was a problem previously.
Somebody, one of the guests said that the military has a great percentage of people of color. That's exactly true.
It's one of the greatest things ever.
Well, yes and no. Of course it is. It's also the opportunity for them to form gangs.
No, it's
inside the military.
The truth of that matter is that it's an opportunity for people of color to be advanced, because when you are up for a promotion in the military, there's no picture of you there. There's only your accomplishments on paper.
Okay, that's true, but that doesn't belie what I said, Seth, is that it is ultimately and has turned into racist gangs in the military. Everybody knows
white supremacist gangs that have that have taken over the U.S. military and the Air Force Academy, et cetera.
Exactly right. And keep also in mind that if you want to get out of that lieutenant colonel slot, you have to suck up to the general's wife socially. Okay. How much harder is that if the general's wife is a white Baptist?
That's a different show.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So can we move past the Bernie Sanders thing now? Is that,
Let's, please.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. So
somebody said, Jeff said that sometimes your audio is dropping off. Sometimes it freezes, but for the most part, it's pretty close.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was awfully proud. I was awfully proud this morning, Jack. I woke up.
Can I guess why?
Yeah, go ahead.
You got up before 11?
No, I got up at 6.
Jesus.
Yeah, I got up at 6. I got up at 6 and I walked out to see if I could offer some evidence, shall we say, in the ongoing case of the Dunkin' Donuts cups being thrown on the lawn.
Do you mean the white trash?
the whiskey tango, the ecru garbage.
No,
Yeah.
you're talking
I
about
woke
your
up,
driveway.
early, and I saw on a friend's Facebook page the question: "What informs your worldview? Where does your worldview come from?"
Oh.
And lo and behold, this person happened to be friends with none other than former Waterville mayor and well-known white supremacist Nick Isgro. And Nick Isgro posted this revisionist history about the church and his love of Christian iconography. So Nick Isgro says, "What's the source of your worldview? How did you develop it?" Nick Isgro says this, to which I replied, "Nick Isgro, don't you mean?" And then I posted Hitler walking down in the was it Leni Eisen? What's her name? The great German cinematographer director.
Oh, Lenny Eisenstadt.
Eisenstadt, yeah.
Not yet. Was it? No, something like that. Lenny, anyway, was her first name.
Right. This is what happens when old guys try to remember shit.
I know.
Anyway, I was awfully proud that I got a chance to take a swing at Nick Isgro this morning, because if you can't beat up on white supremacists on your friend's page, where really can you? This is a guy. If you look up Nick Isgro, the Nick Isgro page has been taken over, kind of like Rick Santorum's page has been taken over.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Where else can you beat them up? I like it.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. Leni Riefenstahl.
Riefenstahl. Thank you. How can we forget that? She was one of the greatest geniuses of cinema, and she ended up in the Caribbean doing underwater tours and doing underwater photographer in her 80s.
Isn't that cool?
What a rock star.
Yeah. Well, rock star and, Nazi documentarian.
True. I mean, okay. I have to give the cinematic credit. She was a genius,
Yeah, of course.
Just like Albert Speer was an incredibly smart guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jack, the state capital takeovers never manifested themselves, as you can see here in the picture that you have. And then here in this other picture, guy in front of a state capitol with a stupid flag.
I think, Seth, that's Albany. I'm not sure, but I think.
I believe
it looks
right.
like Albany.
I believe you're right. What happened? What happened to this movement? Is it crawling under its rock as quickly as it emerged? Are we going to be left with the only question that we're going to be left with is there a trajectory for the Republican Party to come back from Trumpism, or is the Republican Party just done and it's going to continue to be a Trumpist party? We're shifting gears and we're now looking at 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Really the question. Nick Isgro has chosen the same profession to go into as Jenna Ryan. You remember Jenna Ryan, don't you, Jack?
Fill me in, Seth.
Jenna Ryan, the wonderful, she won the Texas Realtor Citizenship Award. Here's Jenna.
That one. What's her excuse now for getting on that jet?
Well, she doesn't have one because she's in jail now. But Jenna Ryan is a realtor. And Nick Isgro is a realtor. Is that a coincidence? What does that mean? Why are all the former Trumpers going into real estate?
Well, I always thought real estate agents were an interesting species, because never before could you make decent money, or at least to survive, with a limited amount of experience and education.
Yeah.
And you'll see that there's, and pardon if I insult anyone because I know a lot of realtors, but there is a group of what you call housewife realtors.
Yeah.
And if you ask them whether these studs are 2x6s or 2x4s, you get that goats looking at thunder look, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Well,
so
Jeff says to maintain neighborhoods, white neighborhoods. How can it? Sometimes we think that there's something that's going on that sounds a little fishy, and we kind of think to ourselves, can't be. I wouldn't do that. It can be.
oh, it can be, and you will do that.
And you will do that.
You
and,
bet.
You know, our friend Rick Bates' wife, Robin McIntosh, the brilliant Robin McIntosh, observed on her own Facebook page this morning, there's a study out that Maine students are now not well versed in the events of the Holocaust.
What a surprise.
And I thought, well, that's not a mistake. That's got to be that can't be unintentional. That is a planned ignoring of that. In addition, I announced last week that we were investigating starting a Lincoln caucus or a Lincoln party here in Maine to be consistent with the at least the media savvy of the Lincoln Project in the public space, with the objective, which I'd like to announce now. I'm going to start advocating for civics curricula and digital citizenship curricula in Maine public schools.
Digital citizenship. That is brilliant, Seth.
Thank you.
Oh man, that's just great.
We're spending time here talking about how there's a visual language that is being spoken, and illiteracy in this visual language, I think, results in what happens in Trumpistan. Right? Trumpistan is the illiteracy capital of the visual language. Steve Bannon would argue, and Roger Stone would argue, no, it's not about visual illiteracy. We're extremely well versed in this language, and we'll use it to corrupt the system. True, but the average citizens that are on the receiving end of those images are not equipped with the language to be able to decipher what those words really mean, where they really come from, what's the context of this message that I'm receiving in this visual language. Foreign languages are wonderful, but visual language is very, very important if that's the language that our kids are actually speaking.
I agree.
We need to educate our kids from a very early age on what digital citizenship and actual civics and the value of our Constitution as it interplays with these new issues of freedom of speech. So that's kind of what I wanted to say.
Okay. And that's, I love that. Obviously the title of digital literacy. Foreign languages, they used to think was important in school, and they would always start with Latin. And it was reasonable at the time, although the language isn't spoken except by my neighbor who talks to his dog in Latin. But he's an exception. This is young John McCann. Okay, he'll shout at the dog, give dog orders in Latin when he was younger. So in any case, even now, teaching foreign languages is a bit irrelevant, except for the help it gives you in understanding the structure of language. Yeah. That's number one. Number two is the language itself gives you an insight into a different culture. But that being said, Seth, your idea that these probably should be replaced, particularly if you grow up American, speaking English, with digital language. It's unfortunately, or whatever, it's become much more interesting as a foreign language, because if it remains foreign, it's a disaster.
You know, our friend Neil Peterson observed when I said that. Neil said, the civics should include a strong international component. Would be wonderful if we expanded the exchange programs to include not just the brightest and highest achievers. I can't begin to tell you how valuable that observation is and how needed that experience is for our kids. I can't imagine anything that empowered and expanded Emma's mind more than her trip to China, her trip to France, her trip to Holland, her exchange in Finland, her exchange living in Malta. My kid went to all these countries before she graduated high school. She graduated high school at the top of her class. She went on to the University of Rhode Island, where she studied in London and graduated magna cum laude from her university. It is indispensable, overseas travel, to expand the worldview of the people that we're talking about.
That's true. And it doesn't mean going to Iraq with an army unit and literally not being able to associate it all.
Jeff wants to know if you remember Ulf from the carpenter from NABET. He was from Sweden and spoke 6 languages.
Are you sure it was Ulf? Because Ulf did not speak 6 languages. He spoke 2.
Well, he spoke to you, and then he spoke Yiddish and Hebrew to Jeff.
Oh, must have been a different Ulf.
I'm joking.
Because the one that I knew, Jeff, you sure his name was Ulf? I don't know if it was.
Yeah. We were in the Greek diner for lunch, and he started speaking Greek to the waiter. I asked if he knew Greek, and he said that Swedes go down to Greece like New Yorkers go to Florida. That's actually true. I heard a great story. We had a friend named Ulrika, and she went to Greece, and she was on a beach by herself, and she's on this white sand beach, and she's the only person there. She goes all the way to the end of the beach, takes off her top, and starts sunbathing, as Swedes do. At which point, a 12-year-old Greek boy comes booking down the beach, sits down next to her and says, in Greek, he says, "Would you like some company?" Ulrika put her top back on.
I met a friend of mine this summer again after a while, and he had a Russian wife who was pregnant, and she was a lawyer in Moscow. She was sharper than anyone I've ever seen. I mean, she looked like a floozy, but she was amazing. And I said, I congratulated her husband also on the baby. And she said, "Are you fucking kidding, Jack? He's the one that knocked me up."
That's funny. Are you fucking kidding?
She was a firecracker.
Well, Jack, apparently, talking about the technology, I'm sorry to deviate, and I'll get to your screen.
No, please.
But talking about technology and how technology is changing the interaction between your public persona and your impact on public life. Here's the guy from the MyPillow commercial, and it's interesting. There's an article in the Washington Post that I'd like to read a couple of sections to you from.
Please.
The headline is, "Some Trump backers are getting hit with 1-star online reviews, including MyPillow and the aforementioned real estate agent Jenna Ryan." And the article goes on to, quote some Amazon reviews for MyPillow. "It sucked. There's Al lying to you, and that pillow guy. Horrible product, just like its CEO. It's okay, not soft, but Mike Lindell wants to declare martial law in America. He won't be getting my business. Stick to pillows, pal."
Which brings us to, Seth, your favorite idea, which is when you're going after Trumpers, think local.
Think local.
Here's something interesting, Seth, that was on Daily Mail. Children who grow up in bilingual homes are better at shifting attention and detecting visual detecting visual changes in later life.
Interesting.
Isn't that
And
interesting?
that part of the brain is used at a very early age. My wife had a nanny in Helsinki, whose name was Tina. She married a man named Louis. They spoke English in the house, so Tina was fluent in English. This is when my father-in-law, John Manbeck, the former Brooklyn Borough historian, was a Fulbright scholar. He was teaching in Helsinki at the university, and oh, that poor guy's got a flat. Sorry about that, everyone. They had children. Louis, I think, was Spanish or Argentinian. So in the house, they spoke Finnish, English, Spanish, but also another language. And so by the time the kids got to school, they were absolutely fluent in two Romance languages, Finnish, which is close to, I believe, Hungarian. Am I right?
It has no relatives at all. Believe it or not.
It's no direct relatives, but Finnish is one of those languages that is absolutely unique and bizarre.
Oh, yeah.
And English, which is also a language which is kind of absolutely unique and bizarre. So these people are now, the children are now extraordinary students. So, and it's interesting you should say that, because we've gotten to observe their maturation, and they're brilliant children. So if you want to raise people that are healthy citizens of the world, and not people who work at I'm not going to criticize someone's work, but not people who chew tobacco, play the lotto, drink extremely sweet, fatty coffee, and throw their garbage out the window. Right. Fuck you. Exactly. Thank you, Jack. Jack knows what to say to that person. That's your choice. So that's why I suggest, and Jack endorses, this civics and digital language curricula, combined with what Neil suggested was an extensive international travel program for Maine students. Emma got off the plane from China, and Nick, the principal at Camden, you remember Nick, don't you?
Oh, don't get me started.
I know, but Nick
get me started.
Nick comes back and says she gets off the bus. Nick pulls her aside because she was such a good student there. Nick pulls her aside and say, "How would you like to go to Helsinki?" She says, "Great." He says, "We have an exchange," and there was, there was always money available for scholarships for these programs too. So, I know what it did for my child. But if we're all speaking a different language, if we're speaking a different visual and digital language, shouldn't digital citizenship be part of the curriculum in our schools?
And you know something? It's happening even though it's not being taught. It's happening by necessity, Seth. It really is. And that's one of the positives.
It's like gun ownership or owning a bow and arrow. You have this skill, you have a cool thing to use, but you better learn how to use it responsibly. Otherwise, trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Hank Aaron died. Rest in peace, Hank Aaron.
He was a baseball player, right?
He was a baseball player. He broke Babe Ruth's record. He spent a short amount of time in the Negro Leagues, I believe.
Yep.
A great American story.
Was there ever a Jewish baseball league?
Sure, there was a Jewish baseball league.
In Brooklyn?
Absolutely there was. No, it's called Major League Baseball. We own the whole thing. What are you talking about? What do you think? 1919 World Series.
When you enter Princeton, there's a sign that says somebody has to pay retail.
That's fabulous. What's the best thing you've bought online recently?
What's that?
What's the best thing you've bought online recently?
That I've seen online?
No, that you purchased. What's the best thing that you've purchased online recently?
I really just purchase guitar parts.
Okay.
So it's really not that interesting.
All right.
But
okay.
watch.
That's probably interesting to somebody. I'm on Facebook the other day, and our friend Gabriel said, hey, I bought a stun gun from China. It was $13. I said, you bought a fucking stun gun for $13 taser, a stun gun. I said, I could use a $13 stun gun. So I bought a $13 stun gun too.
This is the one with the two prongs. You got to literally put it against somebody's neck, right?
You got to get up close and personal. Yeah.
Yes. Because the other one, I'm sorry?
Or their pant leg.
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. It's an uncomfortable thing, but you're connecting, you have a charge that goes through. Because, they're meant for when you're tussling with somebody, you pull that out of your pocket. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to keep it in my front pocket.
Darwin Awards. Let's talk about the Darwin Awards.
And
one of the greatest.
Zap my balls with it, Jack.
Okay, I know. So here's just to bring everybody up to speed, the Darwin Awards, you can't win unless you die. But the greatest awards are for runner-up. And I will remind you of Bubba one year who was down hunting something in his truck out in the middle of the swamp. And he had some old Ford truck and where the fuse panel was right under the steering wheel. And he blew a fuse, so he couldn't get home. And so what Bubba did in his genius analytics is he took a 22 long shell, which is exactly the same length as the fuse, and he put it in this fuse holder, and lo and behold, the truck started.
Are you shitting me?
No. But then after about 30 seconds, the fuse heated up enough that the bullet went off and blew off his left testicle. Now, he couldn't be declared a winner because he didn't die. But as I say, the runner-ups are the ones that get the prizes.
Because you get to hear the story.
Yes. Yes.
You get the whole story.
I mean, imagine being a cop who investigated this.
You took the word right out of my mouth, bro.
Didn't know who Bubba was. And he's trying to figure out what happened. Because Bubba's story is going to be totally different. It was a ricochet, right, off something. Just happened to catch him in the nuts because even Bubba doesn't want his reputation to suffer.
Oh, this is why community policing is so important, Jack. You got to get to know the people in your community, Jack.
You do.
You really do.
You do. I mean, I get wellness checks all the time from Alan Weaver. It ends up that we eat pizza together, but it's really just a wellness check.
That's an excuse.
It is.
Well, I'm happily past I'm happy. Oh, now you know what's coming up the steps here. The FedEx truck just pulled into the driveway, and he's going to knock on the door, and it is going to be the Murray's Cheese taste pairing menu that AJ got for me for Christmas. So I'm going to go get this. Excuse me for 1 second.
Now that Seth is gone, the difference between Seth and I, because we have a over 20-year age difference, is that he remembers what was going to be delivered, whereas I have no clue when they pull in the driveway what it is that's in the box, which makes my life so much more interesting and fun than his. But he'll get there. He'll get there. So now that he's gone, what do you think of Seth? Let's hear a few comments here.
How
Because
about if you go fuck yourself? How's that sound? What do you think of Seth? God damn it.
At my age,
2 seconds.
At my age, Seth,
I know.
it's not fucking yourself. It's not a novelty.
Well, you know, you can either do that. Hey, Jack, let me ask you a question. At our age, shouldn't we be unfucking ourselves?
We should be.
Yeah. Play.
You know, there are a couple of wonderful expressions since I've learned in Maine since I've been here. One is for when people get angry, really angry, and lose it.
Yeah.
One is wrapping yourself around the axle, which I think is wonderful.
Oh.
The other one, when somebody say, "Well, she came right uncunted."
Jesus. That's a new one for me. All right.
Oh.
Ready for the let's do a reveal, Jack.
Oh,
let's
God.
do a reveal. Okay. Here we get a little book from Murray, and you can put your cheese observations in it. What's the cheese name? What's the date? You know, I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't really have a need for cheese-based observations. Well, Jack, do you have a need for cheese-based? If I made a cheese-based observation, would you? I mean, would it matter to you would you care about that? All right. So here's Murray's aged English cheddar. So I got one of those. That's from the United Kingdom.
As wonderful as Seth is, he can bore the living shit out of you.
There are whole YouTube channels on this, Jack.
It's like talking about football, Seth. Give it a fucking break, will you?
Don't you like cheese? Don't you like cheese? Isn't cheese something you enjoy?
I'm lactose intolerant, you moron.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's so inconsiderate of me.
You know, the way you treated Jeff last week, I thought was absolutely unconscionable. Well, admittedly, he paid the Jewish guilt card on you, which of course you recognized after growing up in Brooklyn.
Yeah, heirloom apple butter. Heirloom apple butter. I don't know. Tart apples simmered in cider and brandy, and then seasoned with autumnal cinnamon and allspice. Awesome with Cumberland cheddar, aged Gouda, and Manchego, baby. All right, now let's get back to Jeff, because this is hysterical. While you were talking about something else, Jeff posted this that needs to be seen. My parents spoke Yiddish to keep information from my brother and me. Jeff, my aunt and uncle and my grandparents did that exact same thing, speaking Yiddish so the kids don't understand.
Let me give you the Princeton version of this, Seth.
Uh-huh.
My parents spoke French so that we didn't understand. And then my brother and I used to speak Spanish so they didn't understand.
Really?
Yes.
That's brilliant.
That's the Princeton version.
Oh, my God. You poor guys. Uh-oh.
I can't stand this.
Why? Don't you like what I get it? You like Italian stuff. You go to that Italian restaurant every night. Look at this. Sopressata. Look at that. Look at that, Jack. Then we get some. Oh, look at that. Alpha Coleman Jasper Hill. I don't know what Alpha Coleman Jasper Hill is. Named after the philanthropy dairy farmer from Greensboro, Vermont. I don't know. I don't know that I care that much about that. All right. Well, that's what is in that bucket.
I'll play the blues for you.
I shouldn't leave that up. So who's the elitist? The parents that spoke Yiddish? So I'm getting new information.
Are you done talking about your care package?
Let me ask you a question. Is there a place that you go on YouTube and put bad synthetic drum machine in the search window, and it comes up with that?
Let me ask you something, Seth. What musical education have you had which allows you to pretend?
I can tell you.
Sorry, I'm not done. Which allows you to pretend that you have any ability, background, or education to judge what a bad drum machine sounds like?
Yes. The answer.
No, it wasn't a yes or no question, Seth. I want you to describe your musical heritage.
I attended the City University of New York, where I took, as part of the core curriculum, was a music component where I learned about Dave Brubeck and the unsquared dance. And I also grew up in Brooklyn, New York, to the sound of bongo drums every single night coming from 7th Avenue and President Street. So that was the soundtrack of my youth, as well as having attended many clubs and musical venues as a lad. For instance, I heard Africa Bambaataa and Soul Sonic Force play live at the Roxy one night, actually just having been there. You remember the Roxy, don't you, Jack? You used to skate at the Roxy.
I did.
Did you know it was a club where cool people went afterwards?
You know, I really didn't, because I was into the roller disco.
For real?
But Seth, I still haven't heard anything that makes me think that you have any possible background for music appreciation.
Well, that's because you weren't listening.
Anyway, are we done talking about whatever the fuck that was you got from Federal Express?
Yeah, I mean, it's Murray's cheese. It's my Christmas present.
Oh, don't start again. Don't start again. I don't give a shit.
It's delicious. That cheddar is going to be wonderful. Jack, should I write it down in the book and send you the notes later? Send them over to you? Okay.
Please don't. Right. I'll contact a few of your nemesis. What's the plural of nemesis?
Now, I think, isn't that right, nemesis? Boy, they're growing by the day, too. I wonder what Bernie's going to wear that I can criticize later.
Okay.
I haven't compared myself to anyone.
Let's talk about bad food in Camden.
Holy shit. I mean, that's 5 hours.
I know. I know.
So you're saying that because you were looking for politically incorrect and dangerous stuff to talk about, right?
Yeah, I mean, partially. And then what I realized is that you get the good food sent to your door. Didn't it say Zabar's on that?
No, it might as well have. It might as well have. By the way, guess who didn't get a pardon? Sheldon fucking Silver didn't get a pardon.
Remind me who he is again.
The speaker of the New York State Assembly, Sheldon Silver.
Oh, I love it. But don't forget, somebody mentioned secret pardons.
Dude, is that a for real thing?
I think it may be that they only come out if somebody's indicted.
Oh, isn't that like a sealed indictment, perhaps from Robert Mueller?
Yes. Yes.
Let's use this as a segue to get to the thing I really wanted to talk to you about today. Where are the fucking arrests?
Oh, they have to time this. You know, this impeachment thing, particularly if it gets off the ground sooner than later, is going to take all of the national attention. Then
Well, how
you
about the risk
say,
of flight thing?
I'm sorry.
How about the flight risk thing?
Well, I really think it would be difficult for the big stupid to sneak himself out of the country at this point.
He is
He is being so watched that even the Secret Service detail would wonder where the fuck he went.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
So for the Democrats, what I would do is I would wait for this impeachment, which is going to be a big deal for us as much as anyone, and then just follow it up really quickly with the 60 indictments from New York.
New information coming in on Nick Isgro. Apparently, he's like
He's suing you.
He founded a church in Oakland that links to an anti-Semitic Catholic blog.
Anti-Semitic Catholic blog. Let me process this for a second.
He is. I thought he was just anti-immigration and racist. It turns out he is my new favorite person. And if there was ever anybody in Maine who has a right to go after this piece of shit motherfucker, excuse me, this gentleman who used to serve in our state assembly, in our state government, in the local government, it's a Jew from Thomaston.
Oh, Seth, the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, Seth, it's priceless. It really is. Did I tell you that during the Second World War and the lead up, the way Hitler got the backing of the Vatican was he threatened to expose their pedophilia?
Really?
Apparently.
Oh.
That's why you'll see pictures of him with the bishops and Pope or whoever, all smiling. That's how he got their consent to what he was doing.
Wow.
Catholics live in glass houses, Seth.
Yeah, stained glass houses.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, it's like, Jack, we live in one of the most fortunately target-rich environments for our particular.
Oh, Seth, there's a wonderful picture I saw, and I didn't have time to grab it. It's an aerial shot of Trump on the green, and there's a big shadow in it, but it's a high, wide aerial shot of just him on the green. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to Photoshop in the electronic sight of a drone in it.
Yeah.
And it'll say Iran something, 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 date stamped. It is a perfect shot for Photoshop.
We still have, please don't forget, we still have ongoing investigations by Cy Vance Jr. and Letitia James. And we have a Justice Department with an Attorney General who literally just sat down in the chair. So we have news coming. And on the domestic side of the equation, we've got a president who just put the nation on war footing to deal with the pandemic. Long time coming. Those news items are afterthoughts. We don't even, we don't even register it.
Well, if you spend the first day of your inauguration going into the Oval Office in the evening, and you're 80 years old, whatever he is, right?
Yeah.
And you sign 17 presidential orders retracting half of what Trump has done, I'd say the guy's got some energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
I mean, it's like, it's one of these things where, you know, you're just not used to seeing the chief executive of the United States of America be competent and working, and we're not used to seeing that work product. The only product that we're used to seeing is a kind of observe my narcissism. You know, isn't that strange? That we're, I mean,
Lashing out.
You know, we're so. I guess numbed. I guess is numbed the right word by this whole thing?
You know what was ubiquitous and daily?
What?
Okay, one thing, lashing out.
Yeah.
That's what we're used to. Every day, somebody would get in his sights. And
so I'm thinking about his viciousness the other day, and that awful orange hair. And then I'm watching a film, and this is the end credits.
What film was that, Seth?
Exactly. What film was that? That nobody could answer that. It is the final closing scene of Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. And the villain had a tiger claw that has this awful animal hair on it. It looks just like Trump's hair. And I thought, isn't that a wonderful image for the end of the Trump presidency?
Yes, if you knew what it was.
I know. That's the thing. It's a really obscure reference.
You know what my favorite scene in Breaking Bad was?
What?
The turtle with the dynamite strapped to it. La Tortuga. That they didn't know what it was, and they all started crowding around. Oh my God, who the fuck thinks this shit up? I mean, Seth, seriously.
You know,
you don't use a remote control car, you use a tortoise.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, there's an interesting series on Netflix you should watch. It's about spying.
I was wondering about that.
It's
good. Know, it's like, I think, aren't we getting into the time in the Netflix production / reveal schedule or showings where we're getting a little thin on content, aren't we, Jack?
You know, you got to look for it, but trust me, it's there. I thought it was too. And then I started looking for stuff. It's not just Netflix. You have to maybe use some kind of esoteric app that helps you find stuff on every platform. I don't know what that would be, but I'm sure it exists out there.
Yeah.
It may involve a torrent download. I don't know. But if you do, then you'll see, if you take all the networks, you take Showtime, HBO, Cinemax, Amazon, Apple, everybody. And if you go on IMDb, or if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, if you go on Metacritic, you can literally see a list of the best shows on television from every place. And that is your guide to what to watch. But this show is interesting because although it will never show you the latest in what technology can do, it is fascinating. Let me give you an example. The American Embassy in Moscow, let me think, or was it in the United States? Because there were two of them they get into, or it was London. They wanted to bug the building. This is classic. This is the genius. They wanted to bug the building. So every office had a tiny listening bug in the walls, okay, that was built into it. But they all needed wires. They couldn't be transmitted. This is a decade or 2 decades ago. They all needed tiny little wires. So they had to bring all the wires into a hub. And they figured out, and this is how you're going to love this, how they did this. There was a vent pipe made of steel, and they brought all the wires into the vent pipe, but they couldn't pull them out the top because somebody would see it. And it wasn't even a vent pipe. It was a pipe that looked like a vent pump. So if you looked into it, it was an optical illusion. Okay, if you were standing on the roof looking into it, and
Right.
what they do is they brought all these wires up to a central device. So they had two wires. Okay, obviously there's nowhere they could bring them out. So what they did is they built a device in there, a small explosive device, and some other stuff. In the first heavy rain, they set off the explosive device because there was thunder. I think it was in London. It was in thunder. The explosive device pulled a cap with a parachute on it off the top of the pipe, and the water that went down dragged the little cables down to the basement and out the drain. Seth, unbelievable.
When was this?
Probably 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but
Fabulous.
where they didn't have digital transmitter technology.
Fabulous.
It was so unbelievably bizarre Rube Goldberg device.
That's
And it
great.
worked.
That's great. Did you see the special on the Russian cheating scandal in the Olympics?
Oh, you're talking about Icarus.
Yeah, the guy that they created a device. The KGB created a device to get underneath the caps of the urine sample, and then twist it so that it didn't look like it's broken. And the guy said, "No, if you look at the caps, you'll see there's little scores on the inside where the wires were." Sure enough,
Right.
that's how the KGB got busted.
Well, if I recommend for everybody, and it's on Netflix, there's a documentary called Icarus. It won the Academy Award a couple of years ago, and it's the story of a bicycle racer in Colorado. He made it, who got really interested in doping. It's long; it's 2 hours long, and he got interested in it, and eventually he was successful in getting the guy who ran the Russian doping network to come to the United States and talk to him on camera. And now he is part of the witness protection program
Of course,
somewhere in North Dakota. And the film, Seth, is riveting.
no,
And the lengths the Russians went.
Witness protection program. He's dead now.
Oh,
he's dead now.
It's
Trump didn't keep any secrets from Vladimir.
Yeah, it could be. But here's the kick. What you described is only a tiny bit of the lengths they went to in Sochi, tunneling under the whole structure into where the samples were, because they had to get in there to do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's almost indescribable. It's like watching The Simpsons or something.
Yeah,
the lengths they went to.
But what's telling about this is read to which the Russian worldview is that of criminality and adversarial relationships, which are not based on any kind of mutual understanding. You know, if we have a mutual understanding as citizens of the world, let's behave towards each other in a way which embraces our common national decency. Russians don't feel that way. You know why? Because they are led by indecent people.
And historically, they've always been led with a ring in their nose. The advantage the Russians have over Americans is every Russian knows it. In the United States, these 75 million mouth breathers really think that there is some kind of a democracy and they're not being manipulated. And that gives the Russians a certain strength because they all understand the game, just the way black people in the United States understand the game and white people don't.
I love the fact that we could become a target for this Opus Dei right-wing Catholic cabal in Oakland and other parts of the state as
Death like the ball.
as
I
a,
love it.
as a target of white supremacy. There's nothing that I would enjoy more than to be a target of white supremacists and to have an excuse to get that kind of platform. Wouldn't that be great?
You know, we're dealing with really stupid people here, Seth.
Yeah, we're really stupid people with guns against really smart people with guns.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't think we have guns. That's what's funny.
You know what? Because we don't do anything like talk about it on the show all the time.
Yeah.
These people, they don't think tactically. They just think straight ahead. You know, and
Just
that's
like
why, and just like Trump, they're not tactical thinkers.
No.
Or what they would call the Jews, sneaky.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're not reactive.
Right.
Right.
Right. They have to, and that's what's, it's interesting, isn't it, Jack? Like, we were talking offline about what happened to Europe after World War II. Well, what happened to Europe after World War II is it lost its role as the cultural and intellectual center of the globe that moved to the United States and later to China, India, Japan, Korea, etc.
Even England, to a certain degree, culturally.
Because they killed the Jews.
Yeah.
Because they killed the Jews. You need Jews. Sorry to break the news.
I like that, Seth. That's poetry.
Sorry
to break the news, but we need the Jews.
I'm sorry. And that's why multiculturalism is our strength, not our weakness. Embrace the different flavors, you fucking idiot. Embrace the flavors. They're delicious. Stop being afraid of noodles that you don't understand, you white bread fucking moron. Jesus.
And the bad
jam your
and Bubba
down your throat.
And Bubba, the unfortunate side of this, and we empathize, is that you're going to lose your job to somebody who is smarter and wants it.
Here's the thing, Jack. The technology that we talked about earlier is the thing that they should be afraid of. What happens when good old honest hard work is no longer needed or paid for? What happens when we are all servicing the machines? What do we do?
Well, that is why
an intellectual economy, a creative economy.
That's why if you've invested your career in fruit picking in California, you're sort of fucked.
Yeah.
Because there's somebody who's going to want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, dude, the guy that keeps throwing garbage on my front lawn, he works at one employer or he works at another employer. It's not rocket science.
I think the best that you can hope for this is not some of the charges that could be brought because of what he wrote on those things. I think it's the first thing that always happens to these people, witnessed by the Capitol demonstration, is they lose their jobs.
Yeah, not only do they lose their job, but they lose the impetus for their narrative. The QAnon world right now is distraught because their crazy bullshit conspiracy theory didn't come true on the day they thought it would.
I don't agree. I think that they get more fodder for their narrative because they're playing the victim.
It's funny you should mention that. On MSC this morning, there was a expert from New York University in the history department who dealt with fascism. And she said, you know, it's interesting. They always have to play the victim. Aspiring fascist regimes need to play the victim so that they can fix the problem that they're being persecuted by through the use of authoritarian state-sponsored measures. So in other words, victimhood is not only part of the pathetic emotional makeup of these douchebags, it naturally dovetails with the mechanisms by which they insinuate themselves into positions of power.
True. And if you want a perfect example of that, look at organized religion, who bathe in victimization by Obama, by anybody that doesn't share their cult. They want to see, they want to see themselves on the cross.
And the money-grubbing Jews, money-grubbing Jews, Jack, the money-hungry Jews that are cheating us out of everything.
Well,
victimhood.
They didn't cheat me because all my partners were Jewish. Well, they did cheat me, but they cheated.
They only make you rich?
Yeah, they did.
And that's the story. And that's why Europe is a has-been continent.
Yep. Very, very well said.
No Jews.
Yeah. Here's what we'll do. Let's get rid of our best and brightest. There's this country called Israel that will take them. Oh, good move. You know, I'm surprised. I am surprised that Germany, and it says something for the Germanic race themselves, are doing so well, have done so well. I mean, they were destroyed, Seth. And look at where they are now. They are the centerpiece of Europe.
I'm sorry, Jack, but that's entirely because the United States rebuilt the fucking place and took them on as their major trade partner.
You know, that's true. But at the same time, if you look at England, that wasn't destroyed to the same level, who clung to second wave technology as long as they could and were absolutely smashed by the Japanese. Case in point, the inline 4-cylinder engine for motorcycles that the English after the Second World War, didn't have the tooling to center bore an engine so it could survive 4 cylinders.
Yep.
And that's why the Triumph Triple. The Japanese were retooled. They could do it with enough accuracy that the engine wouldn't seize. And that which was huge, once huge, the English motorcycle out of business. It came back with Triumph, but every other company, Ariel, BSA, I mean, it's endless. The number of countries, Norton, Royal Enfield, all went out of business because they didn't have the opportunity to retool.
That's fascinating.
I bet.
No,
like your FedEx package.
No, it's genuinely fascinating. Take the compliment. Yeah. It's actually an interesting exploration. And also the Honda 750 was revolutionary.
Well,
says Jeffrey.
What an animal.
Bullet.
And even the smaller Hondas. I had a Super Hawk, which was a twin, or the Honda 350 inline 4. First time we ever saw overhead cams.
I had that V45 Sabre for a while.
Mm-hmm. That was a V-twin, right?
Yeah, that was great.
The Japanese killed it. Man, they killed it with those engines. Honda and
electronics, which revolutionized everything. And, you know, it's interesting because they've kind of, you know, I think the earthquake really took the toll out of Japanese industry and opened the door for Chinese industry to move in and take over a lot of that that electronics production. And, you know, now China is making electric cars and introducing electric cars to the market. I love the idea that automobiles are going to be like, you know, a blender, you know, and that battery technology is only going to get better from here. And it's a pretty cool time that we live in. It really is.
Wait for the next battery breakthrough. It's going to kill everything.
Yeah, and you know, so much of the economy that we all depend on, it seems like we have to fundamentally rethink not only our own educational system, but we have to rethink our economy as well, because how are we going to possibly replicate the in-house the income of these people that work making things?
Oh, hang on one sec. I want to show Jeff something.
Okay. Jeff says that he had a 305 Superhawk tool. I don't know what that means. 305 Superhawk tool. Here comes a book. Here we go.
Jeffrey, here we go. I hope you can see this.
No, there you go.
I'll get this right. This is my friend Jim Woodward on my 305 Superhawk, which, and this is in the 60s, had clip-ons on it, a racing seat. God, did I love that bike. It was awesome. This is the 305 Twin, and the neighbors hated it because it had megaphones on it. But that's the bike. I just want to see Jeff because he said he had a 305.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Isn't that cool?
That's cool. I thought he only had he wrote two. I thought he only had the tool. Jeff says,
Seth, Ethan Harvest, right?
Eden. Yeah, Eden what about Eden?
Check this out. I found this for you.
Oh, no kidding.
There's Eden in the chair.
Yeah.
That's Ted on the left, me in the center, Jim Woodward on the right, in Skillman, New Jersey, in the early 60s, when he was living with his mom, with Connie. Isn't that cool? Isn't that great?
It's in the 70s, Jack.
70s.
That's in the 70s.
I don't think so, buddy.
So Eden Harvest is 54. Eden is 50. I don't. Yeah. So he was born he was born in 66.
I don't know if that's right because I was in Sweden for most of the 70s.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. It's not the first time you've been wrong.
Take a picture of it with your camera and shoot it to me, will you?
Yeah, I will. I'll try to scan it or something. Yeah.
No, just take.
Yep, I'll do that.
Take a picture and text it to me.
Okay.
Very cool.
So Seth, I think we've run out of.
We have. I'm sure I pissed off enough people this morning. So.
Yeah, but take Bernie with a grain of salt, and I'll tell you why. He is one of those. You don't have to become president to be a great person. Okay.
Right.
So here's somebody that influenced the Democratic Party in a way that was invaluable to all of us. Okay. Give him credit. He doesn't have to be president. He is that outlier that spoke with morality and conviction. And I'm sorry, I will always love him,
a lot of people will. I think a lot of people are forgetting that I was an actual Bernie Sanders delegate to our state's Democratic convention. I fought tooth and nail for Bernie to beat Hillary Clinton.
Is that before you
stole the nomination from Bernie?
Oh, fuck yeah. Is that you became part of the Tea Party? Was that before that or was that
right?
After?
I mean, according to the idiot on my timeline, I'm a Republican or a Russian. Can you imagine being that disconnected from reality? That is what your idea is?
And after a president who was a Russian fucking asset. I mean, come on, people.
How do you how do you expect to be taken seriously in an intellectual debate when you're so emotionally frail that you go and use the emotional blackmail of 0 to 100, know you're a Russian or a Republican? What's the matter, idiot? You can't think of any other words that start with R that don't make you sound like a fucking retard?
Yeah, true. And the thing, it's like, if there's a Jewish guy that I don't like any insulting,
sure.
I'm a Nazi, right?
Exactly. How is that? How, when you resort to the most infantile behavior, do you expect to be taken seriously? And this is the problem with the left in this country. They want to be able to dish it out, but when it comes to being honest and looking in the mirror, there's no accountability whatsoever. How about fucking accountability? How about, if you want to be taken seriously, look at both sides of an argument. These Bernie zingers is what I was accused. Bernie zingers. No, I'm saying he was the wrong man for this election cycle. He was the.
I agree. Or yes, election. I agree.
And I agree. And I know that look. Every Jew from Brooklyn knows that look. It's a fuck you. It is. Yep. It's a fuck you. I don't care.
Yeah. And good.
I'm tired of this. I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
It comes from.
But the thing
it
is,
comes from the same arrogance that is so distasteful.
I disagree a little, because as much as he will show that, he will never stop caring, because that's who he is.
Right. But he's not going to stop caring, Jack. But there's a difference between caring and caring about what you're saying enough to work with other people to get it done.
I know.
Just bitching about it from the outside of any political party. It's a perfect place to what the kids say, virtue signal. You can and that's why his megaphone is so loud, because he stands outside of the political structure where nothing gets done and talks about things that should be done. Well, of course those things should be done. Of course there should be Medicare for all. Of course there should be single payer. Of course the rich people in this country should be disproportionately taxed. No offense, Jack.
I think that's what I spent years dealing with you, and I know it can be really frustrating, but I understand him. But the fact that he still does it, Seth, my hat is off to him in spades.
Well,
he deserves a hero's funeral.
What else is he going to do? He's an old man.
It's what he's done. He's going to do nothing. But what he's done is open some eyeballs, Seth. Well, this country is so myopic. This country, compared to the rest of the world, where the Democrats on the left are the center in every other country in the world.
Yep.
And he understands that that everything is so skewed that it makes it almost impossible for the left. Because they're so provincial.
Why?
Is it skewed? Yep. Look at American history, American exceptionalism. We can be and afford to be, and we embrace the fact that American exceptionalism is exceptionally provincial and ignorant.
No, I think that American exceptionalism is the guarantee of the multiculturalism that we're experiencing now. The ignoramuses that wrap themselves in a flag without understanding what it represents, and who would willingly overturn the Constitution in a second so that they could keep white people in power in this country. Those are the people that are the problem. They don't represent American exceptionalism. The people that I know who have struggled to overcome issues of their own ethnicity in this country to get the same thing that everybody else has, those are the examples of American exceptionalism in this country.
But keep in mind, Seth, you're 100% right. In Europe, you're small. You have neighbors on every side that speak different languages, have a totally different culture. The United States is huge. It has unlimited resources. So it developed into this structure that had all its defenses in place. And it's given the American public, they have never had to experience the congestion of London or the British Isles. They've never had to experience the congestion of Japan, surrounded by enemies in the Middle East. They never had to experience that. And it's given them an almost schizophrenic version of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. All right. Well, certainly enough to chew on over the weekend when we'll rejoin this conversation Monday at noon. And we'll, if I'm here, I'm here. If I'm dead, you can blame the Opus Dei members of Opus Dei members in the middle of the state. We get to go to war with people who we genuinely hate. God is great, man.
Yes.
God is great. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
In Salah.
See you on Monday.